Hello and welcome to Vergecast, the flagship podcast of stateless computation on personal data with enforceable guarantees.
Hey!
I got it. David pointed out that you can pick any phrase from Apple's white paper about privacy and AI, and we're the flagship podcast of that. I picked leaky user data earlier, but we don't want to get the explicit label on YouTube and Spotify.
Yeah, it's a family-friendly podcast.
Stateless computation on personal data. I'm your friend Nilay. We're here at WWDC. David Pierce is here.
Hello. We're in this fancy house. It's awesome.
It is a very fancy house. Alex Cranz is here.
I love that it smells like tacos in here.
That's our fault.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's fully our fault. A lot of Vergecast fans have wanted us to talk about the tacos, and we will if you get through the entire episode, including the ad breaks. Later on, Allison Johnson will be joining us. We are at WWDC. Apple announced updates to every single one of its operating systems. No hardware, as was rumored. Mm-hmm. And I think the most important set of announcements, Apple Intelligence, which is the company's approach to AI, which has many, many, many components, including all the way at the end, little ChatGPT 4.0.
Yeah, just a little.
There it is. Just shut up, Wall Street.
That's pretty much what it was.
Yeah. You want us to have a ChatGPT strategy? Here it is.
It's just ChatGPT.
So David and I are walking around the event. We're walking to Apple Park. The vibe was very much like, what is GPT doing here? Like, they were excited about it. They were talking about it. But they kept on talking about all the stuff they had built.
Yeah.
In the keynote, their principles for how to build it, how they're going to protect user privacy. There was a second on-the-record event where iJustine interviewed John Gianandrea, who's their head of AI, and Craig Federighi. They recapitulated the keynote and said the principles and values again. And then they kept saying, and then some people are going to want to use ChatGPT.
Right.
And it was just like, I think all the lead up was, what, are they going to pick Google? Are they going to pick OpenAI? They're behind. They got to catch up. These models will power the stuff. And David, it just felt like they could have done without it.
Well, there was the assumption going in that if they were going to sign a deal like this, it was going to be to sort of underpin all of this stuff, right? That, like, in the sense that when you go to Safari and you do a search, you get Google, right? You don't get like a mishmash of Apple and Google when it's useful. Like, it's just Google because that's the one that Apple picked, and also billions of dollars is fun. But the assumption then was like, okay, this will be a Siri based on Gemini. Apple doesn't have the technology yet. Apple hasn't been able to compete with OpenAI and others, so they're going to build on top of this infrastructure, which, as we've talked about, has all kinds of like weird privacy implications, but in a certain way kind of makes sense. Instead, it's just like a weird thing off to the side where Apple made a huge deal out of all the stuff that it has built. It says it can do a ton. It's built this incredibly vertically integrated system that it says preserves your privacy and knows what's on the screen. And then, like you said, and also ChatGPT. Yeah. And so it feels like just an afterthought because it's a really good brand that people know.
Well, it does actually feel like the Google thing because in that it's only being used for search, right? Like that was my.
It's not even being used for search in that way.
It would be like if you only took Google Images. Everything else was Apple except Google Images, so if you do a search for a picture, you get Google, and everything else is Apple, and you'd be like, "What? This doesn't make any sense."
Because the integration is like you ask, and then if it decides that it doesn't want to do it and it wants ChatGPT to do it.
Well, no, sorry, we should step through it. So the big headline feature we should talk about is Apple Intelligence.
Yep.
The way the keynote was structured was to put all of that stuff at the end. It was the grand finale of
it was the
Apple's
one more thing.
WWDC keynote.
Nilay turned to me at one point during the live blog as they hit like a wrap-up moment before they did the Apple Intelligence stuff. And Nilay just turns to me and he goes, "Is that it?"
Yeah.
Like, are we?
Because they ran through all the OSs.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to later. But they ran through all the OSs and like, here's the new grid of icons on the home screen. Look, you can put the icons everywhere. Here's tvOS. We didn't do anything. And then they came to like a natural wrap-up point. And then Tim Cook came back and he's like, power of generative intelligence, blah, blah, blah. Here's all the stuff we're doing. And they laid out a bunch of principles. It has to be powerful. It has to be useful. It has to be private. They've built this extraordinarily complicated system where your device decides whether it can do some of the things that you might want it to do, or it has to go to Apple's private cloud compute nodes, which we should definitely talk about. Lots of privacy claims there. And then it's not, and then it goes to ChatGPT.
Okay.
That's Apple Intelligence. And the heart of almost all these announcements are like, here's some stuff you can do on your phone or your Mac. Here's some stuff that we built this very complicated system to do in the cloud securely. And then also, there's a button here where if you want to take a picture of your fridge and ask it to make up a recipe, you can send a photo to ChatGPT if you'd like. Also, we're going to ask you if you ever want to do that. And every time you do it, we're going to say, do you want to send this photo to ChatGPT? You know what's so there's almost no integration.
Oh, that is that's the opposite.
I had not thought about this until just now. I think that's on purpose. I think that's like extremely on purpose.
Yeah.
Because what Apple is trying to do is like abstract all of the AI-ness away, right? That like you as a user shouldn't have to care or notice what's going to the cloud and what's happening on device. They want it to all be secure. It should all work the same. Like, fine. Apple wants it to be damn clear when you are using ChatGPT because ChatGPT is going to make mistakes. It's going to do a lot of weird stuff. And Apple would very much like to be like, hey, remember when you hit a button that said ChatGPT? Like, this is no longer our problem.
Even the prompt is like, sometimes we'll make errers.
Yeah, at the bottom of every result, it says check important info.
Brutal.
Which is just ChatGPT's reputation now. Yeah. This thing lies to you.
That's even crueler than like ChatGPT's typical thing, which is just like sometimes it makes mistakes.
No, Apple is like this thing screwed check up. This, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a real line there, and that's what I'm saying. It felt like the vibe was we did all this stuff. Also, this is here, so don't ask us about it, right? Like, they said Craig Federighi at the. I don't even know what you would call this. It was an interview, but it was very staged.
Coffee side.
He said that Gemini would be an example of another LLM they could bring into this. And he said there will be others. We heard people talk about, like, what if you're a doctor and there's a medical AI system that you want to plug into your Mac in this way? The hooks are being built so that you'll have multiple models you can pick from. So ChatGPT is just the one they're starting with today because they kept saying it's the market leader. They think it's the best one of these things. They can integrate in all these places. Over time, it's obvious that Apple Intelligence, this much more private system, is going to get better and maybe push one out, or there's going to be like competition and you get to pick whatever model you want.
So is it effectively just advertisement for the API then?
I suspect, I do not know that Apple is paying OpenAI to have this built into their operating systems. I don't know how they're getting paid. I don't know if it's per use. I don't know if it's a bulk rate, whatever. I know that OpenAI doesn't make any money. Famously, they have not yet made any money. Microsoft owns 49% of OpenAI. It would be very funny if Microsoft was putting money into OpenAI and OpenAI was paying Apple for the privilege of being in Apple's operating. Like, that would be almost backwards. So that, the logical assumption is that Apple is paying to have this be part of their operating system, and maybe they will pay other companies over time.
What's weird,
or there will be some other kind of arrangement you can have. You can log in if you have a subscriber to ChatGPT. You can log into your account and you get more features. It will remember you, for example. Whereas if you don't have a ChatGPT account, you're not paying for premium. It doesn't remember anything about you. It's free. It's free to use on your iPhone. It has no memory, and it throws everything out about you. So they have built this like very firewalled version of ChatGPT that's just around.
Yeah.
But all of the action is Apple Intelligence, which is totally controlled by Apple.
That makes that just makes sense. Apple was never going to let anybody that tightly integrated.
But these are not the rumors, right?
No. Well, and it also makes the ChatGPT piece of it make less sense to me, right? Because if OpenAI is paying Apple, that I understand. Right? Like, I get that. For OpenAI, they say, okay, this is going to make people use our product more, which is going to make more people subscribe. That's the path. We get user data, whatever. But OpenAI, in the way that it's set up now, seems to be getting most of the upside, and all Apple gets is just like a weird way to offload you to another system for some questions that you have.
It's very much like, to do the good, fun stuff, it has to be not private, and that's Sam Altman's problem. We're gonna have this. So the architecture. So you think the risk then
is that if you don't have that, all you get is kind of a like not fully baked AI system that people don't use, and so you're sort of lost from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think one of the really interesting pieces of the puzzle here is we don't know how much of these features will arrive with iOS 18 at the beginning. Right. We don't know how many are coming towards the end. Every time they talked about Siri, I kept noticing that they they insistently used like off in the distance verb tenses.
Yeah.
Siri is going to be able to do this. And it's like, when is Siri going to be able to do this? The answer appears to be within the window of iOS 18. So Siri will be able to do a bunch of the stuff they demoed before iOS 19 comes out.
But not
Which
necessarily
is a long
September.
time from now.
Yeah.
Like that's September 2025 is the release date of iOS 19. So there's a long way to go before they have to ship all these features. But the fundamental architecture of Apple Intelligence is really interesting because they are claiming very much that the on-device intelligence that they've built. They said there are already 200 models running your phone before we ever do any of this generative stuff for things like car crash detection and photo editing and all photos in general on an iPhone, tons of AI. And they're adding some of these other models. It's only going to run on the iPhone 15 Pro and presumably the next one, and then max with an M1 chip or above. So that's interesting because the M1, I think, is more similar to some of the previous iPhone chips.
Yeah.
But they are gating it. So it's the 15 Pro and above and M1 and above, obviously running the new versions of the operating system. And it's going to add more models that let you do more stuff on the phone. So you will be able to generate horrifying images on the phone based on what's happening in your photos. You'll be able to ask Siri for certain things using app intents, which we talked about a bunch last week.
But it's only using the data on your device, right?
Only using the data on your device.
Which is why all of the images from the image playground that we saw in the keynote were horrible.
They were so bad.
They were like, it was like, do you remember how when you're downloading an app and it's like, do you want to download any of these other games that you've never heard of and are probably going to steal your data? Like all the art looked like those apps.
Yeah. So it's Image Playground, which is all local. And yeah, it looks bad.
It looks real bad.
But Image Playground is a thing you can just integrate into apps now. So you can draw a sketch and notes and circle it, and then it'll make the AI bubble, and then it'll turn your sketch into a thing.
Is that anything? Like, no, I'm sort of serious. Like, I think I have been thinking about this so much the last few weeks about like what in AI is a real thing that people will do and what is going to be a tech demo that no one in the world ever actually does. And I've been thinking about this actually ever since Rabbit did the demo where he drew a spreadsheet on a piece of paper and then pointed his rabbit to it and was like, transpose the rows and columns and send this to my email. And it did it. And it was like, oh, neat. Unusable feature for anyone who exists in the world. Like, why on earth would you do this? And I wonder with this thing where he's like, there was a moment in the keynote where he was in notes and he just did a circle in a note, in an open part of the note, and it made a picture of the stuff that was in his note. And it's like, technically, neat thing. It made a thing. Why? What is this for?
No, I figured it out. It's when, you know how when you have to send a deck and you don't want to go look for art, to send that deck to like all your other coworkers to be like, this is why we're going to do this new policy or whatever.
Okay, that's
You can really tell that Alex used to be the managing editor.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
She had to explain a lot of policies.
I know. I think I don't make enough decks to like be
Yeah,
you're
if you
steward
make
of the world. I need to make more decks.
Yeah, you make me an installer deck using entirely generative AI. But there's other stuff that will happen locally on the phone. Like in the new iOS, you get AI-powered summaries of your notifications. And they previewed this with a very like the stock thing that everyone previews everything with, which is like your friends are planning a trip in a group text. And it's like, so-and-so booked a house. So the first date is this and so-and-so is going to be late. I'm like, none of my friends are this transactional. They do not communicate this way. It's going to be like your law school friends are shit posting again. Some of these images are not safe for work. Right. And it's like, what will the AI do with this? So like, there's a real, I think, just gap between sort of these demos, like these ideas of what you can do on the phone, the reality of how powerful your phone might have to be, and then like what actually is happening on people's phones. And then at some point, and we don't really know when, the phone's going to say, I don't have the horsepower to do this, or my battery life will be too compromised, or the thermals are out of whack, and it will create a secure connection to Apple's secure private compute cloud service that is running Apple Silicon somewhere. And that whole mechanism is Apple's innovation. Like at the end of the day, Apple running a bunch of tiny models on device and a bunch of bigger models in the cloud is what everyone is doing.
Yep.
Some of the user experiences they are delivering are exactly the same ones as we've seen demoed by other companies. Apple's much better at telling you a compelling story about those user interface ideas, but it's the same stuff. We're going to read all your email and make you a list of flights. Like, yeah, we saw that at I/O.
Right.
That's Microsoft is demoing. But the big innovation is they're saying we're doing this all on your device as much as we can. And when we have to go up to the cloud, we've built this whole system to keep that secure. And then importantly, throw your data away on the cloud when we're done. So there's no chance of being compromised.
Right. That whole chain is supposed to be exactly as secure as just doing it on your device.
Yeah.
Which just instinctively I don't believe, because that's not a thing. You've taken a thing that was on my device and you've put it somewhere else. And so now by definition it's less secure. But at least to Apple's credit, it does seem like it has done just about everything you can do to mitigate that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it seems to be just as secure as possible with still but refusing to acknowledge that it is still way less secure than everything just being on your device.
Right.
Because it's like, yeah, this is probably one of the most secure ways you can transfer this information. You are still transferring this information, and that means you open yourself up to other people inserting themselves in.
Right. And there's all kinds of potential for weirdness if you have network problems, or again, like it turns out sending a bunch of data to the web and the cloud is also taxing on your battery life and thermals. Like this stuff is hard. And I think doing all of this super seamlessly, if Apple can pull it off, is going to be like the true magic trick of this whole system.
Yeah. So the basics are complicated. They just released a white paper about how it all works. It is very dry.
Oh my God.
Alex, I believe your read on it was they don't want people to read this.
No, they sure don't.
But there's some interesting pieces of it, right? Craig Federighi described one part of the system as blockchain-ish, which is actually a great description. So your phone, when it goes to talk to one of these servers, if they have not published the code for researchers to verify the security of the code to an append-only cryptographically signed database, blockchain-ish, that your phone can check, it just won't talk to that server. Right. So like your man in the middle attack there, like they're trying to cut that down. There's a line in the white paper that says we do not want there to be targetability. So it's not like you have a Mac Mini in the cloud.
Yeah.
There's a huge array of devices in the cloud, and they don't want any one of those to be associated with you. So your device, when it asks for a server to run some of these workloads on, it actually will only ever get a group, and it won't know which one is in the end. And then that load balancer is also like hardened. So you can't attack it. So no like attacker can be like, okay, they always get that one.
And it's not sending all the data in plain text.
But it's not storing a database of everything you've ever done on your computer in plain text, like
so
Windows recall.
Yeah.
Although Microsoft did say they were going to fix it. This is like so just a bunch of stuff like that. One of the more interesting pieces, these servers run a custom operating system that Apple says in the white paper is a combination of macOS and iOS that is designed just for inference loads. They've cut down all the other attack surfaces. And then the hardware itself, in addition to all their usual like security measures, they have additional layers of security when they make the hardware, ship it to the data center, and validate it for installation.
And also there's a large man with a gun just standing next to each one, just in case.
Well, I think some of that stuff is in this white paper. They talk about it. It's in this blog post. Because if you recall, there was a huge Bloomberg story about Apple's data centers being attacked at the supply chain level. And I think they're like, yeah, we're not, that's not even a possibility here.
Yeah.
So they're saying all of these things about how the system will work. I think the most important thing they're saying is we want researchers to come in and validate this stuff over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The firmware for these devices, they're going to publish it in plain text. Like, look at it. So I think there's this level of we want to take the pressure on the system. At the same time, the pressure is not necessarily technical. The pressure is legal and political. Like the Chinese government doesn't give a shit. They're just going to say, if you want to keep selling iPhones in China, you're going to have to let us see everything.
Right.
What are you going to do about that? The Indian government is probably not going to give a shit. Like, they just want to see things. They just had some elections. It's a little softened over there, but like, who knows, right? Like, that's the pressure on the world. Our FBI here in the United States has repeatedly tried to pressure Apple into turning over encryption keys to iMessage and iCloud. This is a new vector of attack to say, okay, you're moving personal device off of people's phones into the cloud. There is something called the third-party doctrine in this country that says if anything touches your telecom provider or a cloud service, you no longer have a reasonable expectation of privacy because a third party has seen it, and now the government can see it too. Apple's answer to this is we're going to throw it all away as soon as we're done processing in the cloud, and we send you a result back. And so we don't even have it to turn it over. But the pressure is going to keep coming. So it's interesting that the technical side, they've tried to button it up as much as they can. The legal and political side, they want to keep selling phones in China.
Yeah.
It's
just a big we'll see.
Yeah. It's like we're just going to see how. But also
that problem doesn't cease to exist even if you don't have this system for Apple, right? Like this is just the price of doing business in in China.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, like Apple made that decision a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And this is just another version of that same decision. What it seems like here is Apple is trying to give itself an out for the rest of the world's versions of those legal and political problems, where it can just be like, sorry, we don't have it to give you. Like, I don't know what you want.
Right. They sort of engineered a technical solution to a legal problem.
Right. Well, this is a thing you hear a lot now from people who are building web services is like, the main thing you should do is make sure you don't have one shred of data that you don't absolutely need. Because if you accidentally store a bunch of people's credit card numbers, somebody's going to hack it and they're going to get it. And that's going to suck real bad for you.
Yep.
If you have a bunch of people's email addresses and passwords for accounts that don't really matter to you, same thing's going to happen. Like all this stuff. And so these data minimization practices are not just like good for the world, even though I think they are, but it's just good business practice. And so it's like for Apple, if they're sincerely not turning around and training more models on that data or selling that data, both of which they say they're not, and I think I believe them, keeping that data is just a liability.
Yeah.
And so it's smart for so many reasons to be like, the minute you're done with it, it's just shredded and gone. We can't get it back if you want it.
Apple's ideal is that everything will eventually be on the phone. The processors will be fast enough that they don't have to send anything to the cloud, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think very clearly Apple's goal is to do more and more on device over time.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
But not in like a meaningful way. I think when you say Apple's goal is to get it all on your phone, I think it's gone. The horse has left the station. It's been a long day. Horses, you keep horses in station, right?
Yeah.
The horse has left the barn.
The train has left the station.
Train has left
the
barn.
iPhone workload has left your phone. And I think what's going to happen is the phone will get more and more powerful. It'll take more workloads onto the phone, sure. But then you're going to invent more stuff you want to do. And now you've built this incredibly powerful, secure cloud, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to do all the stuff there will always be some level of stuff you can't do on the phone that now you can do up there.
I think both of those things can be simultaneously true, right? Like the private cloud compute is how you get rid of ChatGPT. And like ultimately at some point, if we go far enough down this road, OpenAI and Apple will be naked competitors in this space. Like that's just where we're headed. And that's how you get rid of ChatGPT needing to do all this stuff, right? I think every time Apple sends something out of Apple Intelligence and into ChatGPT, that is going to look like failure to Apple for a whole variety of reasons. But it's still true, I think, that as the set of workloads gets larger, Apple is going to want to do more and more of them on your device because it's going to save them computing. Apple talked a bunch about the environmental impact of all of this stuff, and they make a big deal about the fact that the more you can do on your device, the less they have to send anywhere, which is computationally expensive, costs electricity. Like it's just more efficient to do it on the device. So I think the push to do that stuff locally is going to be real. It probably won't ever be the whole answer, though. I think you're like, and the bleeding edge stuff can happen in the compute cloud, so that it doesn't have to happen in Azure, which is a bummer if you're Apple.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at. I disagree with you, but not in like some huge sense. I just think there will always be some set of ideas that is too big for the phone.
Yeah.
And once you've opened the door to Apple saying, we've built a system that allows us to take some stuff away from your phone and up into the cloud, which they're very proud of, that all of their data centers run on 100% renewable energy, and Apple Silicon is already high performance per watt, and like they can do all this stuff where maybe they can solve some of those efficiency problems, right? Like,
yeah, fair, yeah.
There's just going to be some set of stuff they can do in the cloud. So like, this is today's the change, and like a year from now or 2 years from now, it'll just be part of the way the iPhone works. Is you have access to private compute cloud. that no dumb Android phone has, right? Like, whereas like with Android, you got to send everything to Google, which is like training on your emails, like whatever thing Apple's going to say. So I just think this is the beginning of a change. And that's really how they framed it all day long.
Yeah.
Was this is the beginning of a change. Like this is the next generation of these devices. This is the next generation of how we use these apps. David at one point, he said you can squint and you can see the end of the app era here in the way that they're talking about Siri. There's just excitement in a way that I would, for example, contrast with the Vision Pro, which received 45 seconds of like, now you can look at your keyboard in immersive mode.
Ultra wide displays, thank you.
But you know, the way they talked about that product 4 months ago was like, we have to pretend this is the thing. And the way they talked about Apple Intelligence today was like, this is the thing that changes your experience with this phone forever.
What is the cool stuff here? Because I obviously there, or wasn't there. I watched it here at this beautiful house. The image playground I was really excited about, but I can just like do that right now with most online image generators. What are the other like cool...
at higher quality? Yeah,
right. They will look better. My shit post will be infinitely better with something else. What is cool? Like we got ChatGPT integration, we got image playground, we got Gemojis, which is like make your own emojis. That's cool. That rules. What's the other AI stuff? Like, what is this for? Oh, the math notes where it will like calculate the math.
I think that's some of everything. I don't think that's like AI, but it's the old.
It's the old AI.
This is the weirdest thing about all of the Apple Intelligence stuff is like, you and I kept accidentally disagreeing with each other in the live blog, which I really enjoyed. You kept saying, so weird, we're 45 minutes in and there's been no AI. And I kept saying, all they're talking about is AI. Because like every single one of these features, it's just AI underneath.
Yeah.
It's not the AI they're talking about. And there is this like long spectrum of what is just software and what is AI and what is like new. And it's all sort of compressing
it's not
together.
As fuzzy as AI's definition is.
Yeah,
right now,
for sure. But like the everything on the iPad, pure AI, and they didn't talk about it as AI at all. They in fact pulled it out of the thing where they talked about AI and talked about it separately. But I think all the intelligence stuff to me felt like a sort of developer demo in a very real way, right?
Yeah.
Like this is a developer conference, and I think it made me think of the Vision Pro thing actually, because to some extent, like what Apple is doing with all of this is saying, look, we built a bunch of really cool technology. Here it is. Please go do something interesting with it. And so far the Vision Pro, not so much. We'll get to that later. But I was kind of struck by the same thing of like, this is a lot of talk about the logistics of a compute cloud and not a lot of talk about features that people can use. Yeah. And there was a bunch of Siri stuff, and I think we can talk about what's coming to Siri. But this idea, I think, especially of the sort of Siri app intents thing where you can talk to your phone and it can do stuff on your device for you, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like Apple didn't weirdly sort of connect those dots today because they have this big idea of what Apple Intelligence can be. They have to convince everybody that this is going to be humongous and like the size of, the iPhone as an industry. That's how you keep growing if you're Apple. This whole thing, I just could not stop thinking was like Apple executives talking to investors, like in a very real way.
Yes.
Was them being like, please, we have a growth plan. We're going to be so successful. Don't let us be the third most valuable company anymore. Like, give it back to us.
Well, I'll just give you the clearest evidence of this that I can offer you. The keynote ended and we did not go to look at any demos.
Yeah.
We had lunch.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was fine. I eat the corporate food with an immense amount of guilt. So it was fine. It was Apple. They have a good chef at Cafe Max or whatever. But there was not like a thing where we like ran around playing with a bunch of AI stuff afterwards. And I even think to some extent the OpenAI partnership is so that no one is comparing Apple to OpenAI.
Oh, 100. I think the OpenAI partnership is almost exclusively for investors rather than actual people.
Well, see, we have to get the stuff and like. Craig said, any place you see a blinking text cursor is a place where you can use this integration in the system. That's pretty interesting.
Well, a lot of it also felt like very Windowsy. Like a lot of the biggest tools, the coolest stuff was like, oh, that's also stuff Microsoft announced.
Oh yeah.
Like oh, look, we can condense an email.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It's really it's like genuinely insane to me how similar everybody is doing AI. Like, God help me if one more company is like, we have an idea for how to summarize your emails so that you can read them faster. Like, I'm good. We have solved that problem that I don't think was a real problem.
Did you see the fake email that they made nicer? It was actually very good.
Was it?
You should get the screen cap of this from the keynote. But they're like, sometimes you write an email at work and it's a little too spicy and you need to make it nicer. And then there's like, they flashed up a mean email and it was like, guys, we have to stop doing this bullshit. And you're like, oh, that's how Craig emails. I must insist that you like blah, blah, blah. And they made it nicer. And it was like, gentlemen, I must once again ask that you stop fucking it up.
Was it Jeff Bezos who was famous for forwarding customer emails to people with just a question mark?
It's very good.
I'm imagining now you take that, highlight the question mark, and you're like, make this nice. And it's just like, hello, everyone.
Yeah.
I received this email from a customer. Can you
There's a real part of this, to your point about features and only the 6 ideas. They are playing a little bit of catch up, right?
Yeah.
Like Microsoft's been out there making Google dance this whole time. Like it's hard to demo features and say like, we made it more personal until you get to Siri and all the stuff they think Siri can do, which is you just ask Siri, what time do I have to leave to get to my daughter's dance recital? This is the example they used 50 times. And then Siri has to know that you have a daughter and where she is and where that dance recital is, what your schedule is. I think Federer, you pointed out, like it has to know if you like using Uber or Lyft. Like you go down the list of things you do on your phone and you need all what they call personal context to make it work. And right now, none of the other compute models we've seen pull this off. Yeah. Maybe Google will get there on Android. They're less good at making the people who work at Google talk to each other.
But those are the only two companies that even can.
There's only two companies that come close. And like Google, to some extent, was trying to show these ideas, right? In a less sort of like focused way. Apple was straight up like, here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick up Siri. You're going to say, I got to get to this dance recital, make it happen. And then Siri is going to run off and tie into all the app intents on your phone. It's going to book a thing. It's going to move a meeting. It's going to call it a day. And you're going to get in the car. And you're going to look at the dance recital. You're going to say, edit me a video. It was a fishing trip. That was the demo.
I think that's
like I went fishing. Make me a video of this fishing trip of my son learning to fish. And Siri is just going to talk to whatever video editing app is on your phone that you've chosen. It's going to like read all the videos for you. It's going to make a thing. It's going to pick a song about fishing from Apple Music. Here you go. Bob's your uncle. You're all done. Right. And like this thing, those are the features. They need a bunch of developers to expose all the hooks so that Siri can actually do it. I think it is very interesting that they're going to app intents. They're not doing the stuff that we thought they might do, which is like screen reading your phone and clicking around for you. I think everyone has realized like, that idea sounds great, but is ultimately not trustworthy. I think it would also break Apple's relationships with its developers.
Yeah, it's also unnecessary if you have a gigantic developer ecosystem of people who are very happy to build stuff for your platform.
But that means they have to be happy to build stuff for this
which
platform.
Is super debatable right now, I feel like.
Yeah, because this would also, your example, that means, okay, I'm not checking Outlook to find the email for when the recital is. I'm not checking Outlook to move this. You can tell I use Outlook. To move my calendar around. I'm not going into the Uber app myself or the Lyft app. It's going to auto choose all of that. Like that's lost revenue for a lot of different people just to make my experience.
Yeah, Uber
nicer.
CEO is like, all right, when do I upsell you to Uber Plus or whatever nonsense?
What this means is the subscription economy in apps goes through the roof because all of a sudden, I just need you to sign up for my thing, right? Like if I'm Uber, I don't actually care if you're in the Uber app for the most part, as long as you're using Uber, because I make money when you use Uber. So actually making it easy for you to use Uber benefits me to some extent, right? Whereas if I run Yelp and I'm an ad-based system, I have exactly zero incentive to be part of this because all I'm doing is giving you the information that you want without you having to come look at my ads. So like the end of this is, and I think this is true with a lot of AI, is you look at a lot fewer things, but you pay a lot more subscriptions.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
I can say I hate that. I don't want to spend more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they did say they will have something called on-screen awareness, which is they will know the state of your phone as you're using it. They will like help you. Again, this is Google
Now, baby.
A million years ago. We have an entire feature about Google Now from like 10 years ago. Like these ideas have been floating around for a while. And I think it's been very hard for Apple to make them seem new in this context because we're in developer conference season. This is the end of it. And the same ideas have been demoed over and over again. The one that struck me as particularly interesting is type to Siri. because they kept saying it's, chatbots are not this. We actually keep people safe by not letting them just do chatbot stuff. That's how you break this stuff and find its weaknesses and make it do evil stuff. Also, you can now type to Siri.
Yeah.
And it's like, first of all, they should have had type to Siri from the very beginning of Siri. I think Paul Miller on this show was like, it is a crime that you can't just like type Siri a command, that you have to talk to it.
Yeah. It's like an accessibility nightmare.
Yeah, but
Well, it does exist, but you have to pick, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like-
I will just remind everybody that Siri launched like the year the Verge launched. Like, that's how old this thing is. Like,
Who do you think has done better?
we are told that it's like 1.5 billion requests to Siri a day.
Yeah.
Just slightly behind the Verge.
Yeah.
People command us to do set timers all day long. The Vergecast hotline is just like 5 minutes. But they should have had it from all along. And now they do. So you can type to Siri. Whether that feels like a chatbot to people or just commands, who knows?
Yeah.
One of the coolest features, by the way, they added to AirPods for Siri is now when it asks you if you want to do something, you can just nod yes or shake no.
I'm very excited about that.
Very cool. So they're just kind of making Siri more natural and more like available to you, and then increasing its set of capabilities. None of that is coming in the betas of iOS that are going to be out.
Nope.
That is just going to slowly increase over the course of now until the end of iOS 18. And then we'll see what makes it, what gets pushed to iOS 19, whatever. But they're basically saying, like, we're starting now. We're going. Siri's going to become this thing. That's what we want it to be.
And they're severely limiting what phones it will work on. Right.
Right. And it's, it's unclear whether that's because they want everybody to buy a new phone. They probably want everybody to buy a new phone.
I was going to say, you don't think that's clear? I think that's fairly clear.
I think I need to like spend more time thinking about the differences between the M1 and sort of like whatever, the A series, and the iPhone 15 Pro. Like, there's some stuff there that's different. But yeah, they probably just want everybody to buy a new phone. And you're not going to get some like M1 MacBook Air owner to be like, I'm doing this for
in theory,
Siri.
if this cloud computing thing works as well as Apple says, you should actually be able to fail it pretty gracefully down and just do more and more in the cloud as you get to older and older phones.
Well, you want the older phones with the older cell radios pushing more and more to the
Hell yeah, dude. Let's go.
Maybe the cell radios is it.
Huh?
Like maybe the cell radio is why.
Yeah, who knows? Or they just want to sell a bunch of phones. I don't know if you looked at their last quarterly earnings. They're desperate for an upgrade cycle.
A mix.
Yeah. But I do think this is an unusually developer dependent feature, not only to plug into the intents, but like one of the things Apple did a lot of today, and we should get into it, like we have a lot of OSs to get to, but they opened up a lot of new APIs and things people can tap into and gave them access to new stuff that's going on in the system. And like, they're both giving users more stuff they can noodle around with, but also developers feel like they're getting way more access to like the underlying stuff happening on the device than they have in the past. And I feel like if you're Apple and you want to like make things work across the device, you have to do that. But it also feels like this is Apple being like, okay, we are sort of throwing open the iPhone in a new way. Please come do cool things with it. Please, we need it so bad.
Please come. Which is like wild for them to be doing right now when probably their relationship with the developers has never been more fraught.
Yeah. I spend a lot of time trying to decide how big a deal I think that is. Because on the one hand, where the hell are you going to go?
Yeah.
Like, what other moves do you have at this point?
100%.
And for Apple, this is another chance to shore that up. Because if this increases Apple's market share, it starts to fight against some of these other AI systems. Everybody who's like, oh, OpenAI is going to break the paradigm of the smartphone. Apple can just sit here and be like, gotcha. We win. Come make apps for us again.
Yeah.
But
have fun with your rabbit.
Right, right. But at the same time, it is true that there are a lot of developers who do not believe Apple has their best interests at heart right now. And
Especially if the point of all this stuff is to obviate the app, right? Like,
right.
I think like fundamentally it's very interesting to look at Apple under a little bit of competitive pressure. Like, where are you going to go is like, that's the monopoly. Where are you going to go? Like they have all the customers. No one right now is like running off to buy an AI powered Surface Book. Federighi again today said, technically we've been shipping AI PCs since 2020.
All right.
And some people want to call that a category now. And it's like, they are feeling pressure. It's good.
Yeah.
Like it's good for all of technology when these companies are ferociously competitive, and this stuff has made them ferociously competitive. They all have the same idea. Mm-hmm. It's all the same stuff. We make this email 10% nicer.
Yeah. Email summarization wars, baby. Let's go.
There's just a part of this where at the end of it, it's just like, I'm sending David a robot email. It's his robot summarizing it. he's sending me some weird mutant Genmoshi in response. It's like, what have we accomplished here?
I love how it's just abstracting all communication. Like that's all AI does now. Is it just abstracts everything we say.
Yeah, you'll send the first email, and then it'll just be AI forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then something will end up in your calendar.
Yeah.
And that'll be great.
Some stuff that they did not announce, which I was curious if they would. They announced AI image removal in the background of photos, but not anything beyond that. Right. So basically Smart Eraser, which like Google Photos has had forever and Lightroom now has. That's really interesting. They're going to add this to more of their products, but you could go even farther and be like, you can just take people out of these photos, and like they didn't demo that. Right.
Yeah.
So Apple is clearly operating within some set of constraints. They did a lot of safety checking around their generative AI tool, which again produces just like horrific cartoons.
I'm so excited.
It's not nearly as photorealistic as the other stuff that we see on the market. Like Meta's AI tool is just a weird spaghetti Jesus day and night, right?
Yeah.
Apple can't make anything of that quality because it's running everything locally.
Well, it's using all of like your images to train on it, right?
No.
It's not.
No. There's
So
no
where's it
there's
training?
not-
How's it training?
It just has a model. It's a pre-trained model. It's running on your phone.
Okay, so pre-trained garbage model.
Yeah, and they were very clear. Actually, David brought this up. The Apple, just like everybody else, like, yeah, we trained in the public web
Just
for its text models. Yep,
Yeah.
just like like you do.
Like, yeah.
And like publishers could have opted out. And it's like, what? Publishers like to make sure Applebot isn't scraping us. Maybe they were. I mean, everyone freaked out about ChatGPT.
just
weren't, yeah.
one person.
I don't
was
even
like,
know if we block it. Disclosure: we have a robots file. Someone else is in charge of it. But like they said, they trained their image model on a bunch of Apple-owned images in order to maintain safety. They selected the data they were training with. They licensed a bunch of books and news archives and stuff. So all that stuff is sitting on the phone, which is why it's as limited as it is. It's not trained on your data.
I was really
Training a model on even just the amount of photos in like a normal phone, like your phone would explode.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just horrible.
Yeah, I don't want
to see anything
No, thank
it does there.
That's why you need to go from 35 to 38 tops. Alex. Good comments on YouTube last week. But like that last piece where like, how will we keep it safe? How will we keep it from doing the weird stuff the other models have done? The weirdest part about this is on your own phone, code running locally, on the phone you purchased with the operating system you're on, there's stuff Apple will not let you do. In a way that right now, Apple doesn't sit between you and what you type into Pages. It doesn't sit between you and what you can record with the camera. It doesn't sit between you and what you can edit in iMovie. But you open Image Playground and you're like, make me some horrific stuff. And Apple's just going to say no.
Because Apple doesn't want to run into what every single other company runs into, where it's like, oh no, you did a racism.
But so the difference is all that stuff is happening on a website controlled by a company on someone else's server. There's a lot of precedent for, once you're using cloud service, other people get to say what you do with it. There's not a lot of precedent for you are running code locally on your computer.
Right. If you can do it in airplane mode, should there be any rules?
Right. And the one that I think of all the time, I've asked a bunch of people about this. The one that comes to mind right now is Adobe Photoshop will not let you print out a dollar bill. You
Really?
scan $1 into Photoshop and try to print it. They'll be like, no, it's $1. We're not going to let you do counterfeiting. The government has asked us very politely to not enable counterfeiting, and just like won't do it. Okay, like we've done. I think everyone has sort of like accepted over time. Yeah, fine. Like don't do counterfeiting in Photoshop.
Yeah, but that's very different than like what just reading the paper and what kind of Apple tested on and what they're trying to get rid of. It's like it's just all the shit posting. It's all the stuff like sometimes you do want to send something absolutely horrible to your friend.
Yeah, like I bet Photoshop will let you print out like a bunch of butts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Photoshop will absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, encourage
And I bet Apple will not let
I don't know
you.
if Firefly is ready for like make a bunch of butts, but Firefly runs in the cloud, right? So we've accepted this thing where it's like you're using someone else's computer, particularly for free, and then you can just say what's good or bad.
Yeah.
And we have some expectations about what they will allow. You're using your own computer. We do not usually allow these things to have rules.
Right. You can make all the butts you want.
Right. If you pick an open source,
I mean, that is the use case.
finally a way to sell Chromebooks at scale. AI PCs from Microsoft. All the butts you want. But yeah, if you take an open source model and like run it on some PC today, nothing's stopping you.
Right.
And there's not really a way to stop you unless, I don't know, the chip makers prevented it. Like, that's just not going to happen, right? Like, I've asked Lisa Su this question. I've asked Qualcomm this question. They're like, yeah, if the government tells us not to allow stuff, we won't do it. Anyhow, the point of this is, I think people are going to get this. They're going to assume it's their computer, and the thing that it will not be is 100% their computer anymore.
No, and I kind of find that a little gross. I mean, it's I think if it was just a straight up app, if it wasn't like integrated into a whole bunch of other apps, I wouldn't feel as gross about it. If it was just like, oh yeah, that's the Apple image generator app, it won't let you make butts, I'd be like, okay, that's fair. But like, okay, if you want to make butts in any of these other tools, I should be allowed to.
Well, I think we have our first test.
I'm so excited.
Apple, again, the vibe at WWDC is like, we know people are going to do weird stuff with their thing. We'll take it down when we need to. They very much know that the systems will hallucinate and there's going to be some weird outcomes. They're just like ready for it. Yeah. But I just like, and I think we should take a break and actually talk about all the OSs after this. But like the one piece of this that like philosophically I'm thinking about is like, this is the first time an operating system is going to be straight up like, no. We're just not going to let you do it. And Apple's approach to it is like, we're the ones generating it, so we're going to set the rules.
That feels weird to me.
It's weird. It's going to be weird.
I don't like that.
And all the other ones are on the cloud. So you can't like roll up to Google and be like, here's what I want to do with your data center today.
I think I just want to say free the butts. Like, we got to free them.
We got to take a break.
So we'll take a break. We'll be fine.
Everybody think about whatever you need to think about.
But free the butts.
Free the butts.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back with the Vergecast, the flagship podcast of leaky user data.
There we go.
I'm just going to keep saying it. It's going to get Allison Johnson's here. Welcome, Allison. All right. Outside of the AI stuff, there was a ton of other news at WWDC. Apple updated almost every single one of its operating systems. I say almost because tvOS received virtually no updates.
It got some. It got the same updates Amazon has had for years.
But only in the Apple TV Plus app for Apple TV originals.
Perfect.
Yeah,
it's we call that it's the severance box now. That's just what that's for. It's fine.
It's the most expensive streamer on the market. David, you want to run us through all these?
Yeah, let's do this. So there are 8 platforms I have here, and I'm defining platforms slightly more loosely than Apple did, and I have ordered them in what I would call rough order of my own particular interest in them. So I feel like the first one we should start with is iOS 18.
Yeah.
We should start with the personalization, right? This is like the thing I was most excited about coming into this. And Allison, I'm particularly curious how you feel as someone who uses all the phones and is someone who is like, I feel like every single time I look over your shoulder, you're like moving things around on your home screen, just in life.
Just to add some chaos.
What did you make of all this?
Yeah, it's, I feel like it's the next step, with the lock screen customization we've gotten and home lock screen widgets, which I love, and I don't know if anybody else uses, but yeah, just a few more options. I'm pretty interested in the control center updates. They've like kind of rejiggered it, and now it's like way more customizable. You can like resize the tiles and you can move things around. And then that kind of feeds into the lock screen where you can change the shortcuts, the like, what is it, flashlight and camera?
Yeah, flashlight bottom left, camera bottom right. Yeah.
Right. Which for some reason I have trouble hitting those things. But you can change them and you can make them pretty much anything that's in the control center options, I think. Yeah.
The Halide folks are very excited because you can just put Halide in
video and Keynote right
on lock screen.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Like, do I want to blame this on EU regulatory pressure? I would like to blame it.
But it's rules, I think.
It's great.
It's
this
cool.
is like what everybody wants, is to be able to reprogram a bunch of these buttons to different kinds of apps.
Yeah, it's something that Android's been doing since it started?
A long time.
It is so funny watching Craig Federighi stand on stage and be like, look, I have an app icon. I can put it anywhere I want. And it's like, oh my God, Craig.
By the way, I just want to point out, you can't put
No, you can't.
No.
Thank you.
No.
It's still a grid.
I compared it to Stage Manager in the live blog, and a bunch of people gave me shit for it. And I'm right. It's Stage Manager.
It's just not like a free form. You can't get to like desktop levels of crazy.
Yeah.
It's a grid.
Yeah.
And you can put some stuff on one side or the bottom.
Honestly, moving out of the grid and making you be like allowing you to put wherever you want would be good security for them. Because if you get somebody's phone, you're like, I don't fucking know where any of these apps are. It's just a pile.
Yeah.
Like, oh God. Like, done.
They also announced what I think should just be known as the grinder feature,
Oh,
or the Ashley Madison, if you will.
Yeah.
Where you can have a folder full of hidden apps that are locked.
I was like, oh, what are those hidden apps? Oh, well, if you're married, I know what those hidden apps are. So
Sensitive information.
I'm going to be suspicious of all of y'all's phones.
That's where I put the notes for things I'm going to buy my wife. Because I just want her to know ahead of time.
You're real
You
sweet.
have a
Yeah.
whole app just for that.
Nice.
No, but so I'm very excited about the apps on the home screen thing. Like that rules. Just the thing where you can put a row of them on the side and nowhere else. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Like that's where icons should go. Like if you've ever tried to use your phone in one hand, it's stupid that there are icons everywhere. Anyway, the thing that I think is bad is the color theming that Apple is trying to do.
No.
I've seen a bunch of screenshots of this. So in theory, you can like apps will be able to theme their own apps, so or theme their own icons, so you'll be able to do lots of different things with it. But you can also, it seems like just brute force a color across the whole home screen. Every single screenshot I've seen of it from devs so far looks like trash.
That's because they haven't done it right. It's got to be that really horrible green. And you've got to have like the Matrix background on your phone. And then it's going to be sick.
I don't believe that.
I don't know if anyone has ever seen Cranz's Slack theme. Unusable. Just an unusable.
It's a beautiful security measure. No one's going to be like looking over my shoulder at Slack. Because they're going to be like, nope. Mm-mm.
It's
But
great.
you know, you have to look at it, right? Like that's the challenge there.
Yeah, but you just harden yourself.
This explains a lot of why sometimes I'll Slack you and like 8 days later you're like, oh hey.
Yeah, I don't like it. But no, I thought that was like both the dumbest thing and also my favorite thing. Because like, there's the potential to make it look really pretty. You could theoretically, but every example they had on there was like horrible.
Yeah. Like what Google has
Yeah.
done with Material You, I think is great. And they've done a good job of making it match with backgrounds. And that's some of what Apple is trying to do here, it seems like. But I don't know. It's just like a weird brute force thing that I'm not
like,
into.
Even the sample he did where he's like, it's like the dog and then there's a bunch of tennis balls. And he's like, yeah, I can choose a color from here. And immediately chose the tennis ball color. So like, that was in the demo.
Yeah.
He made it look like garbage in the demo.
Yeah.
You just all of you underestimate the power of teens to theme their phones. Like this is for some huge percentage of people. This is the reason they have been jailbreaking their phones.
Yeah, no, there's going to be so many purple and pink fonts very, very soon with like the Comic Sans font.
Yeah. That's going to be amazing. I'm very excited for the teenagers to ruin their phones.
Yeah.
But this is like table stakes stuff.
Yeah.
That
it's
Apple
nuts
has not
that it
had
took this long.
forever. And now they're like, okay, you can like customize your home screen even more. And the reason they never had it before is because Steve Jobs, and maybe only Steve Jobs, had the conviction to say, most of you have bad taste and I don't want you to make my phone ugly. And now they're out of those guys.
Yeah, Joni left.
He's gone. Yeah. What's he going to do?
Yeah, he was like, they're like, and with him, all good taste went too.
All the rest of the designers left. They're going to throw up some other designer. Like, here's this guy. He made the fabric band on the Vision Pro. He thinks you have horrible taste.
I feel like every year for the past few years, we've been allowed to make our phones a little bit uglier.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we're just given a little bit more.
And we should be allowed to make them as ugly as possible. If I wanted to
America.
look at MySpace, let me.
It's so obviously coming. Just give it.
I'm
some-
so excited.
Even the control center stuff is really fascinating. It now has pages. I think Ford CEO Jim Farley was out there posting on Threads about how excited he is for the Ford Pass integration with Control
Sure.
Center.
The Mach-E got like a little cameo on the phone.
You can super unlock your doors from Control Center now.
I don't
Great.
think they even unlocked the doors. I think they just turned on the air conditioning in the car.
That was the demo during the keynote, but the integration you can unlock the doors from your luxury.
Awesome.
It's just what everybody wanted, was to not have to use the Ford Pass app. But it's like, even that is just, it's a little bit more, just let anything happen here.
Yeah.
Like Control Center, I think, is a successful product for Apple.
I think so.
It does the thing that everybody wants
Yeah.
it to do, and now it's just another surface to muddy up.
I did like, because Jen and I have talked about this a lot, where we talk about the smart home stuff. And the smart home controls in the Control Center were pretty terrible.
They weren't great.
Yeah.
Because they kept on, they moved them around, which is exactly what you don't want to
Yeah,
have
you were like, I want to turn
Right.
off my light. Oh, cool. You decided I never
Yeah.
need to turn off my light.
Yeah,
Here's the button.
because the four that they do, they auto-populate based on what you've used last.
Horrible.
So if you're like, I want to turn off this light, you end up all the way in the home app.
Yeah.
Whereas the light you turned on yesterday is like, here I am, ready to turn me on again.
No. I never go in that room. Leave me alone. Yeah. I think the fact that you can customize the home stuff more, that was like, I was like, okay, because that gives me, that's like, I think about how many swipes it takes me to like turn off a light in my house, right?
Yeah.
And right now it's like, okay, I got to go into the home app. I got to find look for it. If it's not on that front page, I got to go to the thing. And now I'll be like, swipe to the home section.
And soon you'll be able to just be like, Siri, dark.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, there's now like a lot of ways to do everything on your phone.
Yes.
Because to some extent, your home screen now has widgets. Your lock screen now has widgets. There's still the weird old like today screen to the left of your home screen. You can put stuff in apps. You can long press on an app icon to do stuff. You can now, one cool thing that I saw, you can long press on an app icon to turn it into a widget in place on the home screen, which looks very cool. It's neat. They like breezed through this stuff to get to the AI, and there's actually a lot of like little design details in iOS 18 that look really great.
The new settings for flashlight in the flashlight widget are awesome.
Yeah.
You can set the width of the beam of the flashlight.
That's awesome. Beautiful.
They should have spent an hour on this.
That's so
We all been like, yeah.
I honestly believe like in any other year where Apple didn't feel like it either had to or had an AI story to tell, we would have spent like an hour talking about little tiny design details, and there would have been long videos about like, I just saw one thing on Twitter that now when you press the volume button, the bezel indents slightly on the screen so you can see the button being pressed, just this like tiny little affordance that it looks like it's being pressed from the side.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Love it. But also
no. I know what they're doing with that. You know what they're doing with that. We all know what they're doing with that. They're getting ready to take the buttons away.
No.
Yeah, that was my next thought.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
hate both of you for ushering that into existence.
Oh no! I mean, the second I saw them be like, the screen will dink. I'm like, oh, I know what you're doing.
Don't make my screen dink. But we have buried the lead long enough. We got our RCS. It's RCS time.
Yeah.
If you
Nilay screamed.
if you
out loud.
listen, I did a whelp. I wish I had thought about it sooner. So at I/O, when they mention RCS, like the crowd goes wild. Like Dieter rips his shirt open. At the Apple event, when their RCS shows up and he says it for 1 second, and RCS thing, dead silence except for me. And I believe Allison also cheered.
Yeah, okay, when I realized you were, I was like, oh, I can do a cheer.
I should have just screamed, Dieter!
Yeah.
Just like
That would have gotten the laugh, I
instinctive.
think.
Other than that, there were no sounds. No other sounds were made.
I bet you could hear you somewhere in the live stream. If you do, send it to us, vergecast@theverge.com. Send us Nilay screaming about RCS.
There's a very famous bootleg of Jeff Tweedy from Wilco playing in Madison, and it forced him to play the song "Gun" by Uncle Tupelo, and like it goes out there, and it's just me going "Gun," and he's like, "Really?" It's out there. You can find it. It's not a legal recording.
But no, the RCS. So we talked last week, and we were debating like, how big a deal are they going to make out of RCS? And I think where we landed, if I'm not mistaken, was it'll be in the bento box at the end that shows all the features, but they won't name it. And I would say we almost got that. He did say the letters RCS out loud on stage
As the bento box appeared.
Yeah, right. It was like a brief. I was kind of like, "Oh, there's RCS," and then he said, "And now we have RCS," and then just breezed past it.
Dead silence.
They
did not like this.
They spent more time on the satellite messaging. Like, you are in the woods. You can now thumbs up emoji, your friend. And then we have RCS.
Yeah. And the fact that you can now do text formatting. You can do like
that rules.
strike through in your messages now.
Yeah,
which is
italics.
definitely not going to work over RCS. I can tell you that with great
Yeah,
confidence.
they announced a bunch of features that are iMessage only, so that they could be like, now we have RCS. By the way, SMS works with satellites, but not RCS.
I did see that.
SMS work with satellites, but not RCS. I did think it was incredible that in 2024 we went to a keynote by the third richest company in the world, state-of-the-art computing company, and they're like, you can underline this text, and then they're like, and you can also bold it and italicize it, and people were like,
Well, and there was a moment in the Siri one where he was like, now you can find documents. And we were like, oh my God, documents.
in the iPad where it was like, we've made file browsing easier. It's like, dude, this problem is super solved. Like, you just refuse to solve it.
Yeah.
A lot of those moments where you just recontextualize old solutions into new places. Like, you can italicize text in messages. Yeah, I understand why. It's just like, really? It's the I button. It's been in every word processor I've ever used. The little slanty I, you can just push it.
You can do it just anywhere. You can do it on Twitter. Or you could.
Italicize?
Yeah, but you had to it was weird. You had to think about it.
Yeah. Well, now you can do it in messages.
It's very exciting.
Message also got any emoji is now a tap back in messages.
That I actually think is very exciting.
People are super stoked about that. You can make your words jitter and shake and explode. Right. That was the other.
Do you guys use that stuff? Like, I find I use the tap backs all the time. And that's about the only kind of wacky iMessage feature I use consistently.
I'm very
Except
excited.
the birthday balloons. I love the birthday balloons. I rock the birthday balloons every time.
I forget about them and I see them.
They're
I'm
very
like,
good.
Oh, that was nice.
I always forget about them until I'm like, oh, congratulations. Oh, I get fireworks.
Yeah.
Say that.
Right.
I'm very excited about the ability to use any emoji as a tap back.
Yeah, I think that's going to be
nice.
pretty good.
Effectively, now you just have emoji responses, which every other platform supports. Whereas being like, haha, we're just like, this is too sarcastic.
Yeah, right. It's like I use the thumbs up and the bang bang for way too many things.
I mean, I use
Yeah.
the haha when I'm not truly engaged
Yeah,
conversation.
that's what I mean.
But I'm like, oh, but that was funny. Point.
It's the you tried of emoji
It's
reaction.
like, I don't have any more energy for
Yeah.
this.
Like
I got nothing.
It makes you a dick whether or not you want to be one. Like it's not. So I'm very excited to expand the range. Blood tears is my favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not going to be able to get custom emojis. I think blood tears might be a custom emoji just in our Slack instance. If you want to know what it's like working at The Verge, often I reply with a picture of a smiley face crying blood.
It's true. It's super useful.
For journalism.
It expresses so much about what we do here.
More than haha.
More than
Just way more than haha.
what if? Okay, starting today, haha means blood tears.
Tell everybody.
Just make it happen.
Tell your friends.
We're just going to make this a thing now.
Yeah, you see these words, it means I'm crying blood.
I mean, sometimes the jokes, that is a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's keep moving. We got more platforms to do here.
You want to talk about game mode?
Yeah, what's the game mode?
There, you just did. Welcome to game mode. You can now play 5-year-old video games poorly on your computer, and there's a new
it's
Assassin's
on the
Creed
phone.
game. Whatever.
The new Assassin's Creed's coming
can
to
play
the
your
iPhone.
phone on your computer now.
We're going to talk about Apple announcing games from 2017 when we get to the Mac.
Sorry.
Game mode prioritizes wireless performance of controllers on your iPhone, okay?
There, done. Great. Congratulations to all of your wireless controllers. Let's move on. The next platform, and this is not technically a platform by Apple's definition, but I think we should talk about it, is Photos. Because Photos is like a hugely used app, and they announced a bunch of stuff, including a giant redesign that I would argue is not a particularly giant redesign. It's just that they put a bunch of new albums in your Photos app that I am suspicious of their usefulness, but now they exist.
Yeah, it's very like memories forward. Like it seems like the actual photos you're going to look for are just right up there with like, remember this time and here was this thing that happened.
Look at all your dead pets.
Yeah.
Really, really enjoy them.
I just
love
remember
them.
like there was years ago at an iPad event. I think it was the iPad event they did in New York. They put up this marketing image that was a guy sitting like in the crook of one of the supports on the Brooklyn Bridge, doodling on his iPad.
Sure.
And it's like, sure, this is like a normal thing a person does on their device. And every time Apple shows new Photos features, I think of that guy sitting on the Brooklyn Bridge because it's like this thing where there is a whole album of just all your awesome pictures from yesterday. It's like, no, I don't have any awesome pictures from yesterday. Like, I have a bunch of accidental screenshots. I have receipts from the plane, and I have a picture of my toddler that is the same picture that I take of my toddler that's blurry and weird every single day. Like, I don't need this, Apple. And all of these things are made for like extremely interesting, worldly, beautiful people who take thousands of photos of themselves every day. And I think none of those people exist in the actual world. It makes me crazy.
They exist on Instagram. All
They
my
do
friends
exist
on
on
Instagram.
But they try.
Yeah.
Right, like most people are just using their phones to take photos. But I do think the idea that the app is not memory forward is fascinating because it does imply you're taking more photos and videos than ever, and it's hard to find them, and the device should like sort them for you.
Which I buy in theory. Like, it's good logic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use Google Photos as my camera roll. Do you? I mean, like on
No,
my
I use
iPhone.
the Photos app.
Right, and I think the sort of conflation of the Photos app with the camera roll is like fighting against Apple's goals here, which is to compete with Google Photos and other apps like Google Photos. And so it's just like at some point, it's like, I just need to see all the photos I took, like in a list. Google Photos right now, actually, its most infuriating feature is it insists on stacking your photos for you.
Oh, I hate that.
And it's like, you took 5 of these frames. And it's like, yeah, I know.
I would like to see all 5.
I would like to see them. I
Yeah.
don't want you to pick one. And And I think it gets weird when you think of the Photos app as actually your camera roll and not this like memory playground.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder also how much of this is the fact that we all review devices.
What do you mean?
Like, do most people take screenshots?
Yes,
Okay.
all the time.
On purpose?
All the time.
I take a lot of accidental screenshots.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
But I also take a lot of
like, I know
on-purpose
people who
screenshots.
have like 10,000 screenshots on their phone. Just like things, conversations, disappearing
Receipts.
messages, Snapchats, like all the stuff. Like anything that happens on your phone, the easiest, fastest way to capture it is a screenshot.
Yeah.
So you can actually do some segmenting and making that stuff searchable and filterable from the rest. Like there's a lot of good intent in this app. And I think the way it looks is like it's even more complicated than it's ever been before.
But I also think it is prettier than it's ever been. Like if you think of where
Yeah.
we started with iPhotos to now, gorgeous app compared to iPhotos, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I care about that.
No, I agree. It has gotten a lot better. And I think as a like management system, it makes sense that this is kind of what they're trying to do. It just seems like this idea of we are going to constantly repackage your photos and shove them at you feels like the wrong answer to me.
Yeah.
But I do think some of the stuff they're doing, like I think said the exact same, you can find your driver's license or your license plate in your photos. The identical demo to Google, which is just like, this is everybody's
The
idea.
driver's license.
Was your driver's license. Okay. Google's was your license plate, right?
Right. So it was what is my
Slightly
license
different.
plate now?
Totally
You're gonna
different
need
features.
Two phones
Yeah,
in order
exactly.
to get all your
Right.
information.
And then I'll know everything about my
Well, the
vehicular
demo of
situation.
they are slightly different. they were ever so slightly different.
Uh-huh.
Google was you just asked Google Photos what my license plate number was, and it
Right.
like told you the answer. This one was you were in a web form and said enter your driver's license number, and like the Apple intelligence would go and get it and like enter it for you.
That's cool.
Slightly different demos.
Sure.
Same exact result. Which
Correct.
is you filled out a meaningless number on a form. Fine.
Welcome to the AI future. It's just a bunch of
like
weird UI affordances.
You are going
on
to
top of
throw
it.
robots at the DMV until the DMV
Yeah.
submits. My taxes paid for this shit.
Yeah, so it's perfect. So that's photos. iPad, which I think was a weird one in that it was both incredibly disappointing and also the single coolest demo of the day by a pretty wide margin.
I ended
Yes.
the iPad session with iPhone by saying, I'm sorry. That was overwhelmingly what I felt at the end of that. Why did you think that was cool?
The math?
The math thing was awesome.
Just the calculator app.
Just the single, just in terms of like, holy God, this is cool technology. Just the thing where he's writing down an equation in notes and he writes the equal sign and it just does it
Yep.
in his handwriting. That rips. Dude.
And
another one that I'm like, does this help anyone with anything in reality that
Yeah.
exists? I don't know.
where they did the table tennis algebra, and then he was like, make a graph of velocities,
Yeah. no.
distance over velocity. I was
Kids
like,
are
this
just
rules.
doing stuff on Chromebooks now. Like, it's fine. But it was awesome technology. And yet, I think, and I'm curious if this
So
was
just the calculator app?
listen, it was awesome.
Look, they spent 14 years to make the best damn.
People walked into this thinking iPads were going to come out of WWDC running macOS,
a thing
and
that
you're
is-
like, the calculator app did.
A thing that is important to say is that the biggest cheer by a wide margin at this year's WWDC was for the calculator app for iPad. Do with that what you will, but
Yeah.
it was not close.
People saw algebra being done by a computer, and they're like, finally.
Yeah, but I found this one so fascinating because it was like we got the new iPad Pro and the new iPads like a month ago, 2 months ago. Time is whatever. Everybody was like, okay, this is a device waiting for amazing software, and like WWDC is coming. This is going to be the one, and we just super duper didn't get it.
Yeah.
like just not even a little bit at all. And I don't know if you guys felt this way being in there, but the energy in the room was the lowest as he was describing like share play improvements on the iPad.
Right. When he got to, we've added some UI improvements to the iPad, and everyone thought it would be like a windowing system.
Right.
And he's like floating tab bar, and then he said the word morph 5 times in a row. It just seamlessly morphs into the sidebar. I don't know if you've seen anything more famously than Robot in Terminator 2 morphs. The video for Michael Jackson's Black and White, some of the first morphing
Good
ever
morphing.
done. He turns into a tiger. Nothing about this hit on the level of Michael Jackson turning into a tiger in the video for Black and White.
This was no
like
T1000,
absolute
yeah.
zero response to this morphing.
It was
The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, I think emotional reactions from everybody in that room. Nothing on this hit the level of the White Ranger coming back. You know what I'm saying?
An impossible bar. Though. Impossible bar.
nobody else. I'm just surprised you know that much about that.
I know a lot of morphing. I grew up in a time of morphing. These are core childhood memories.
Morphing was very popular.
It was like
in
a
the
big deal.
90s, yeah.
Like a lot of late 90s, early 2000s culture really revolved around morphing.
If you ever
And I'm
wait,
just
like
saying,
a-
the guy, he said, watch the tab or seamlessly morph into the sidebar. And I was like,
no.
yeah, it is baby morphing.
We should move on, but I just want to say, if you ever write like a Sufjan Stevens style album, I grew up in a time of morphing is this title of your single.
It was oddly prevalent. Allison's with me. She knows.
There was, yeah.
There's a lot of morphing.
Yeah, there was morphing.
They were mighty and they were Power Rangers.
They were-
Only one verb in there.
All right, let's move on. That's enough for the iPad. The iPad still disappointing now with a calculator. I put watchOS next, but it's really a tie
Wait,
between.
can we say two things about the iPad?
Sure.
There are two things. One, they announced the most important feature of all for anyone who has a parent with an iPad. You can now take over their screen.
Oh, I
So
missed
when
that.
you're FaceTiming with them, you can share play, and they're like, "What am I doing?" You can draw on their screen to call their attention to something you want them to do, or you can just do it.
That's cool.
Killer feature.
Yeah, that's a good feature.
Absolutely killer feature. And then the weird dynamic handwriting font thing they're doing, Smart Script, where you draw on it and it smooths out your handwriting, but then also sort of creates handwriting for you. It's unclear whether there's like a system-wide typeface or it just has a model of your handwriting that you can now copy and paste. You can copy text from somewhere else, paste it into a document in your handwriting.
That's
in
pretty
Smart
awesome.
Script.
Couldn't
You're
you
right.
do that on like a Surface device 5 years ago?
Yeah.
But now it's on the iPad.
Yeah, look, they didn't add Windows. They added a morphing taskbar, and you get Smart.
They were like, we're going to set the bar real low.
It's very low.
And then we're going to go slightly.
People thought they were going to run macOS on their iPads coming out of this event. They got
Those
Smart
people
Script,
were not correct.
and David got a calculator.
You know what's ironic?
For all
is
the algebra you do at work.
this is a good segue into the next one. Let's do macOS next, because what we actually got is much closer to the exact opposite of getting macOS on your iPad. We got iPhones on your Mac.
Yes.
macOS Sequoia. How do you feel about Sequoia?
It's like a name.
It's fine. It's a name.
I've live logged Adobe for like 10 years, 15 years now. And when Craig does the bit about the name, I literally just like take a break and like crack my knuckles. I'm like, it's a name. It's gonna be a mountain.
Yeah, they
good.
did or didn't get high. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big things. We should talk about iPhone mirroring, because this is one of those things that
This
I
is
think
the big thing.
Apple probably didn't expect to be as exciting to people as it was, but is very exciting, and I think is like going to be a huge deal.
Yeah. I mean, they're missing a key interface element.
You mean a digital crown?
It took the world by storm. So it's right up there. It's the click wheel, it's the digital crown, it's the trackpad. Three most important devices. No, they don't have a touchscreen. It's like bananas. They
Right.
now can mirror a phone onto your Mac without a touchscreen. But I think the basic idea that people want to use their phone. There's a bunch of apps on your phone that did not sign up for the Mac App Store when the Mac went to Apple Silicon, which they really thought would happen. It did not happen.
Yep.
How are you going to get the Instagram app on your Mac? How are you
Was
going
it
to do it?
Catalyst that was supposed to bring all that stuff across?
iPadOS was iPad apps being remapped into Mac apps.
Okay.
But now you can just run iOS apps on
Right.
Apple Silicon Mac. Straight up, no porting. The Bluetooth lights in the studio at my house have a horrible iPhone app, and it's the only app that has ever I've been like, I wonder if that's here. And it's there because they don't care. Yeah. Instagram is like, no, we're not letting you do this. Right. TikTok is like, we're not letting you do this. We're not making you a Mac app. Yeah, you just mirror your iPhone. It's just the most brute force. Like, we're just horsepowering this screen onto that screen. Solve the problem. The app's still running on the phone. It's very cool. I think it will work. I think people are going to use it all the time. The coolest part, I don't know if you guys saw this, the notifications get remapped. So your iPhone notifications show up on your Mac, and then you click
As Mac notifications?
As Mac notifications, and you click them, and it'll pop open the iPhone mirroring and drop you into the iPhone.
I mean,
I'm nervous about that.
Yeah.
I already don't like how many notifications I get on my iPhone. I'm like, are they going to be on my computer now too?
Yeah, so like AP News loves to push a breaking notification for everything. Is that just gonna pop up on my Mac?
Well, supposedly now, thanks to the magic of AI, all of your notifications are going to be sorted by priority, which couldn't possibly go wrong or be gamed by any systems because Apple has historically done such a good job of managing notifications.
Growl back. Like that's all you gotta do.
No, they Sherlocked the hell out of Growl.
I know. They Sherlocked it, but like they didn't make anything better.
No,
they
that's
just
not.
made
That's
it
not what
worse.
you do when you use your dominant monopoly to kill your competition.
Makes
It's
me
not
so
the choice
mad.
you're making.
But I am excited about like the iPhone thing just because I'll be able to never have to get off my couch again when I need to like log into something that needs two-factor authentication.
That's why you get an Apple Watch.
Oh, that's a good one.
No, because
You all think the Apple Watch is a health and fitness device? I think of this as a two-factor dongle.
does it have like
It shames me from
does it
time
have
to
the
time.
authenticators on it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I use
clutch.
Okta Verify and Authy on it
Well,
all
I'm
the time.
gonna-
Thanks to you, actually, because you have been proselytizing this for years.
We don't use any of those services. We use other ones. This was not a security hole.
I don't have any of those on my watch.
we use the new Apple
I'm
Passwords
downloading
app.
them right now.
This is a two-factor dongle that will occasionally shame you for not standing up, and it's fine. It works. But that thing where they added more iPhone to the Mac, deeply funny.
Oh yeah.
They also we talked a lot about Siri in the AI section. They changed the way Siri looks and works on the Mac to make it more powerful, to give it more of these text inputs. But like they didn't change much. The big other feature that got a lot of cheers in the Mac section was automatic window tiling, which Windows has had for 100 years.
I have used it so much on Windows, and I have an app on my computer that I like when they announced it. I was like, but I thought we already had that.
Yeah, it's one of those features that it is truly bonkers it didn't have already.
Yeah.
And there are a million apps out there that are free and great for window tiling and will do it better than Sequoia, I'm sure. So go use those. I use
Magnet?
one called Rectangle. It's very good. Highly
That's a
recommend
good name for an app.
It is. It's very good.
Very good.
It's very good. And it's free and it's wonderful and everybody should use it. But there's so many things in here that are just like Apple sort of slowly checking off boxes of like features. It's insane that have not been here for a decade.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I'll take it.
A lot of people have asked me how to feel, I guess. I don't know how to
Safari?
describe this about Safari
Yeah.
and the fact that it has AI summaries built into it now, which is, I know you two love Arc, but a lot of people have feelings about Arc doing that in different ways, feelings about Perplexity doing that in different ways. This one feels much more innocuous because you're browsing the web and it is loading the web pages.
I mean, I have it turned off in Arc. I always forget that it's there. Though.
You just like Arc.
Yeah, I just love art.
But that distinction you made, I think, is actually really important and is the whole thing, right? Like Apple's way of doing this is you go to a web page and then AI can do things to that web page.
Yeah.
And like a bunch of it is really clever, right? It's like if you're looking for important information on a web page, it will help you surface it. Like
Yep.
if you ever go to like a restaurant website and you look for the phone number, impossible. And this is like, it will just find you the phone number. Like that's good, but you're already on the website. Right.
Yeah.
And so now all you're doing is you're solving for awful web design, which I'm fully in favor of. Like, AI should destroy bad web design. But it flips the equation of the thing. Like it's not going to the web page and then returning information on my behalf. I am going to the web page and then asking it for information.
To be clear, we have not used this to any great extent. Like
No.
we've seen some demos. People have the private betas and they're publishing about it. So like people are talking about it. But I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth between, hey, this web browser is now doing a lot of summary. You have a big partner with OpenAI, which not everyone is so happy with. Disclosure, our company has a content deal with OpenAI. Cool. I don't know if we have one with anyone else. But like, I think a lot of the Safari work, at one point, the person who's presenting Safari was like, if you haven't used it, you should try it. It got pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like, oh boy, you need to get this back. Like, you got to get this back on track. So they're adding some features to it because, as David has been covering in Installer, like browser wars are back. There's like a bunch of very interesting browsers because of AI features, and so I think Apple needs to capture some of that.
Yeah, and the reader mode updates that it got was cool. Reader's another one that it's like nobody's mad at reader mode, even though it strips everything out because you have to load the web page.
You have to load the web page.
Like that's just the whole thing. And there's now what's it called? They call it the viewer mode, where it'll just pop up a video that's on the page if you want to watch the video and give you like native picture-in-picture and viewing controls.
That's very
awesome.
good.
Love it.
Yeah.
Incredible
It's making
feature.
bad websites better. Unbelievable. Huge fan. make me go to the website.
Right. The problem with all the other browsers is like you'll stop browsing the web.
Right.
And then there's no more incentive to make web. And I think Apple's trying to walk the line here.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm again, yeah, there's a lot of questions, but I'm kind of in favor. Does anyone sitting here use Safari with any regularity?
I do.
Do you? Like on purpose?
Yeah, for until I switched to Arc, I would do like Edge as my work browser, and Safari was my personal browser. I tried to keep the work separate.
So what I've learned about you in this podcast so far is you are a devoted Mac user who loves Outlook and Edge.
Make better mail and web browser.
Use other devices.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard about these AI PCs. Yeah. You love being
The
watched by
Surface
big
is tight,
corporations.
dude. You were also on this podcast not long ago being like, oh, what Apple wants to do is build a Surface. You could just have one.
I know, but I don't want it. I want Apple to do what I want it to.
You just want to ug up your iPhone.
This is like people in America are so confused about competition.
Yeah.
They're like, I'll just yell at Apple until it makes me the product I want. I won't just buy the product that exists.
Exactly.
Already is the thing I want.
That's why I'm in the job I'm in, so I can just
very
yell
good.
everywhere.
Can we spend 2 seconds talking about gaming and then talk about passwords?
Literally 2 seconds.
Okay. Apple announced a bunch of
That's
games
it. Sorry.
coming to the Mac. I just want to announce they're like you can now play Death Stranding on the Mac that came out in 2019. Yes, an Assassin's Creed game, one that is coming out. That's true, but another one that came out in 2019. And then the big finale was Control. Now with ray tracing, Control was the game of the year in like 2017.
Control is a game that everybody just uses to show off ray tracing because it has really good ray tracing. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of why it exists in most people's computers now. I mean,
Like
it's a good game.
Control is at the point where it's like if you open the PlayStation store on the right day, it's like, do you just want Control?
Yeah,
Like you should have. It's like really good. You know, like you should try it out.
But the Ubisoft stuff was interesting. It did feel like Apple is trying to kind of brute force its way back into the gaming conversation. I mean, it's been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years, but having the Ubisoft like guy on stage, having the new games come out on the iPad, on the Mac, like day and date, that's not nothing.
Wait, I got this wrong. Control is a game of the year contender in 2019. The Assassin's Creed game came out in 2017. I'm sorry. Apologies to everyone.
Yeah, they're all old.
But also, this
old
does.
games.
I was a different person. This was before the pandemic.
It's like it's pre-COVID.
Right?
It's old.
I was breathing on people every day.
This does continue Assassin's Creed's perfect streak of being available on every platform invented by anyone
a computer
ever.
and you're like, can I fucking stab someone on this computer? Ubisoft is there.
They're like, yes, in a little French accent.
Yeah.
The new one is in feudal Japan.
All right, that's too much game mode talk. Let's talk about watchOS briefly. This is the one I am perhaps least qualified to talk about because I just went in and turned off all of the fitness notifications on my Apple Watch because they were making me sad. And
Now
it was
they're
like,
not
do you want
gonna-
to stand up? And I was like, no, I'm on a call. Leave me alone, Apple. But there's like, if you're a fitness person, and Allison, you're wearing a watch and seem like a fitness person, there's a lot of new stuff here. This thing is like a super intense health and fitness device now. It's getting serious.
I will say, and we'll give this shout out for our colleague V Song, that you can now finally tell Apple you're taking a rest day. Or like you're sick. You're not gonna go do your little jog
I think
or
they
whatever.
sobbed.
Yeah.
Probably.
I could feel it. I could feel her, energy.
V was typing in our Slack when this got launched and was typing in all caps so fast she was just making thousands of typos.
Yeah.
Just
happy.
pure
Just
joy.
garble, yeah.
But yeah, so you can now take rest days. You can also change your goals day to day throughout the week, which I think is very clever. There's a new Vitals app that'll track new stuff on your body. If I explain it more than that, I will immediately sound as dumb as I am about all of this. You can rate like the effort of a workout. It's basically like this is all just health inputs and outputs, right?
Yeah,
Like, that is what this device is now.
It felt like they added a bunch of stuff that other folks have been doing, like Aura Ring has been doing it, Garmin has been doing it, especially the health stuff. Like Aura has been all over that.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, we've got all those sensors. We've in fact got better sensors. We could probably do that. And Apple has just been really weird about it before now. And
Well, they've been in a pretty healthy lawsuit. The company about
that's probably
There's
why.
that, yeah.
That's probably why. But so it's nice to see that. Yeah, you'll be able. The rest days is the big one though. I think that was what the one like I was seeing on Threads. Even everybody was just like, yeah, rest day.
yeah, that was the one. The people asked that forever.
Yeah. Because sometimes you feel like garbage, and your watch is like, you haven't moved at all today, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, because I feel like garbage. Thanks, Mom. Like, leave me alone.
And it seems to get like meaner and meaner as time goes on. Like if you get to like day 3 of not closing all your rings, your watch is just so disappointed in you.
Yeah.
It's like you get the message. It's like, you didn't close any rings yesterday. Like, let's just try for one today. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
What's the bare minimum you can give me?
What if you did anything today? And I'm like, I just didn't even have my watch on yesterday. Leave me alone.
Stand ring. We're gonna go for stand ring. Once an hour.
Yeah.
Just stand up.
I'm gonna put my goal to 3 hours today. Let's go, Apple.
It's good.
All right, let's burn through these last ones, then we can take a break. AirPods. We talked a little bit about the AirPods.
You nod.
Head shake,
Oh,
nod.
yeah.
Very good.
Unbelievably unconvinced that works. But if it does, very excited. There are a lot of people out there who are trying to make that stuff work. Turns out you move your head a lot. I don't know if you've noticed, but like in just being a person in the world, you move your head a lot. And so figuring those gestures out.
I hope it's
complicated.
the same way, like when you talk to your computer, how you use a voice. You have like your computer voice. I hope you have to like have a computer head nod.
Dramatically head nod.
So you're just like walking down the
Exaggerated.
street doing these really dramatic head nods. That would be ideal.
Which is definitely better than talking to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not weird to just constantly
In
be
both
walking down the street.
cases, you'll probably get the car to yourself on the subway.
I was walking on the street in Philadelphia the other day, and a woman rode by on her bike, and she just goes, "Hey Siri," really loud, with her AirPods in. And I was like, literally, like a lot of people stopped because that was just a weird thing to happen. And I said out loud to the person I was walking with, "I've never seen anyone do that in the wild before," and they're like, "That was special." And that we had like everyone's like the whole street had a moment because she was like, "I'm gonna talk to Siri while I'm just biking."
It's hard to do in public because you're like, I'm always like, "Hey Siri, how are you?"
No, you gotta.
No, she just
Philly, man,
with her whole chest.
the whole
I love that for her.
Philly. That's where you can just do it.
Yeah.
There's some towns in America where you can just
just
address
live your
the voice
life.
assistant.
Yeah.
The AirPods Pros, they're getting better like phone calls too. Microphones.
Voice
right?
isolation.
Yeah.
Which is
Oh, yeah.
a feature that has existed for a long time and is deeply buried in settings on all of your devices. This is like a thing you can do on phone calls now, and it makes you sound so much better.
Yeah.
And it has always driven me crazy that Apple doesn't just turn it on by default. But it's a thing that exists on the Mac. It's a thing that exists on the iPhone, but you have to turn it on for every single call, like in the middle of the call. And that's very stupid. And so the fact that it's just on now, there's also the personalized spatial audio, which, Nilay's favorite feature, so that everyone can sneak up on you during your phone calls.
Yeah, that's what you want.
But no, I'm into it. The AirPods,
They did it.
yeah, they're still AirPods. No more AirPods Maxes. I really thought that we were going to get AirPods today. Either it was going to be a HomePod or new AirPods Maxes, and they were going to like make a whole series story out of it. Nothing.
What everyone thought was that they were going to add macOS to the iPod, and the AirPods would be the focus of all the AI efforts. And all of you people were disappointed.
So we got a calculator app, and it was sick. tvOS we have covered several times. We'll just move on from there. It'll now that we're getting a new
They added
season.
21.9 projector support to tvOS, okay? This is the next hour of the Vergecast. I'm
Moving
very
on.
excited about this.
Speaking of the next hour of the Vergecast, VisionOS.
I will not name names, but a friend of ours, friend of the show, came up to us, and they're like, so they're just giving up on the Vision Pro. And this person looked bereft.
Aw,
Bereft.
that's sad.
And I was like, no, I think they announced it 4 months ago. I don't think they had anything left in the tank. And like they're giving up on it.
Well, Wes Davis was going through all of the updates, and he's like, "Oh, what they didn't say on stage was that they are fixing a ton of bugs and issues he's had with it, because he's like the one person on.
He
staff.
loves it.
He loves it.
God bless him.
He's always like, "You want to FaceTime?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." Put that in the fire. But yeah. So apparently there's doing a bunch of updates to it, but they just didn't talk about any of that.
They did not, because I think you have to know what is broken about the Vision Pro in order to appreciate the fixes.
Yeah.
And most people don't know anything about the Vision Pro.
And they're like, "We're not spending
because
time
as
on
David
that."
is fond of reminding us, it costs $3,500.
7 out of 10, baby. Here we go.
I stand by my review now more than ever, actually. Not the score, but the review.
No, I think it's right, and I think we have continued to find what is that it's better out here than in there.
But they did add, they're adding more immersive videos. They're going to release more stuff. They're releasing it in more countries, which actually got a huge cheer. That expands the market. Canon's making a special lens just for the R9, which Allison, I'm curious if you have a read on this.
Oh my God. I totally like blanked that out. It looked like, wasn't there a moment where some company was making a 3D lens for the camera?
Yeah.
Like Fujifilm, I think, did the like, when 3D was going to be the next thing. They're like, here's a camera lens that will shoot 3D photos for you. And I was like, we're doing it again.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I can't tell if the EOS R9, it was specifically the camera they called out, has a sensor or a processing system that can take the split image, right? Because what they're doing is they're making a right and left image and then combining it somewhere. So I'm wondering if the camera has some setting, but the Canon's making a lens for one camera. It's not just a Canon lens like you would expect. It's for this one camera. So now you can shoot Apple immersive with this one camera.
Is it the R9 or the R7?
Was it the R7? Viren says it was the R7. Viren's already bought the lens.
No. Oh my gosh. Live fact checking.
Maybe I just typed it wrong in the live vlog. Now I'm trying.
Yeah. Again, I would say this is indicative of how important this
It's the
actually is
R7.
to the world. It's the
But
R7.
I think this is really wild because there's not enough content for this headset.
Right.
So that they spent a lot of time talking about just like how they're building out the content pipelines for the Canon EOS R7.
Thank you, Viren. Yeah. But no, it's true. It's very clear that Apple thinks content is the thing.
Yep.
And they announced like new environments, new ways to look at the spatial photos, like new tools for showing this stuff. It's very obvious to me that the two things they're seeing people do in this are use it as a monitor, which is why they announced the new ultra wide monitor, which looked awesome. I'm confident will not look like that in actual use, but the idea of having one giant like wall sized monitor in front of you kicks ass, and I want it very badly.
I'm very excited to see if that means macOS will now support ultra wides, curved ultra wides more
that's
natively.
interesting.
Because right now, if you get one of the crazy Samsungs, they just like don't work very well.
Right.
It would be hysterical if it only works with the Vision Pro.
It would be perfectly on brand.
Yeah.
If you could get a giant curved ultra wide in the $35 headset, but that same resolution could not be displayed on an actual monitor.
Just beautiful.
Yeah,
No,
we'll see. But people did cheer for that. It is the thing they're using it for. But yeah, I think that just means they're adding more display resolutions to the Mac, which would be good because there's a class of monitors that you really can't use very well with the Mac right now.
Yeah. Well, and with that, that's the last we're going to hear of the Vision Pro for a pretty long time, I think.
Can I, in my continuing quest to describe the what is a photo apocalypse, they added a feature. Right now you can shoot spatial audio. Right now you can shoot spatial video and photos with your iPhone. I don't think you should do it because it actually really reduces the quality of, especially in low light. So
The files are monstrous.
yeah, and you can only look at them in a headset.
Yeah.
It's just like not worth it right now. But they are adding a feature where it can spatialize your regular photos, which means it is creating a bunch of synthetic data for your eyes to look at out of one photo.
Yep.
So you've got a left eye vision and it's going to make a right eye, or you've got a right eye, or whatever it's doing. It's just going to create a little bit of a depth map, and it's going to just synthesize some information that super wasn't there in the photo. Is this the greatest what is a photo crime? No, it is not. Is it super weird that we're all just racing headlong into the future of synthetic imagery and being like, oh, that's fun?
Yeah, but that's stuff they've been doing on like TVs for ages, right? When they do the auto upscaling and stuff, isn't that the same thing? Where they're just adding pixels?
Well, no. So auto upscaling is, you take like a 720 image and you just like make it bigger.
Yeah.
And,
No, but I mean,
and
like
you get a
in
bunch of
TV
AI
shows,
stuff
yeah.
in there. This is, and like, that's still right. You're right. That's happening, but you're adding pixels like in a 2D plane.
Yeah.
They're going to add a 3D image. So you're going to get another angle from like, assume the picture again is your left eye, you're going to get another angle on the same image and you're going to see like a little bit of the side of someone's head.
I cannot wait to look at a little bit of the side of Allison's head.
But an AI Allison's head.
Right. Synthetic.
Yeah, you're just going to have like
Yeah.
4 ears.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it'll be great.
I'm just saying that it's just like one of those things where you're like, they're just doing that. They're going to totally synthesize another image for you to look at to create a 3D effect. That image never existed.
Nope.
It did not happen. You did not capture it. This computer is just going to confidently tell you, this is what your other eye would have seen. And you're going to be like, that's weird. It's a weird thing that's happening. I will say, I know Liam is always on me for endlessly going on about what is a photo. I ruthlessly used the generative eraser in Lightroom the other day to take people out of the background of a photo of my daughter. I'm as conflicted as you are. I am but a man. Okay.
How did it make you feel? Huh? Do you look at that photo differently?
Awesome. I do look at the photo differently because I know what I did, but I don't know that most people have a feeling of shame when they're done using Lightroom.
Generative shame is a whole thing we're not even.
They should mark it as shame. We're about to, by the way, have a big story. Jess Weatherbed is working on it. Regular photographers are now running into the reality that any use of AI tools appends a watermark, which then Instagram will just like say made with AI, and people have real feelings about that label. It's the Vergecast Verge story that exists, but Jess is working on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the platforms. There's a lot we didn't get to. I suspect we will talk a lot more about this, both like on Friday and for the rest of our lives. But it was a lot. Like it was a big day.
Yeah.
And I think it was a funny one because in another world, just that run of platforms would have been a 2-hour.
That's why at the end of it, I was like, are they done?
Yeah. And as it was, they just blew through it. Like I think one of the things we're going to see over the next few days, because the developer betas are out, we're going to learn about so many things that didn't even come up or get mentioned. They're not in blog posts. They weren't on the bentos. Like there's a lot of stuff in these platforms.
The bentos are getting surprisingly less dense.
Yeah, they're very sparing now.
I think Apple should repack those with information.
I think just like a plain text screen. With
here's a list of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just full changelog. That's it. We should take a break.
You don't want to talk about games some more?
No. I don't want to play Assassin's Creed on any of my Apple devices. Leave me alone about it.
All right, we'll be right back. All right, we're back. Welcome back to our show. We're ending with a lightning round. Unsponsored. Sponsored by the EOS R9. By the way, I would like to thank the very many people who have sent me photos of the Sony ULT speakers in the wild. One person was like, I was in Best Buy and I had to go look at for myself.
Amazing.
Hit the button. Enter the ULT era. They have not sponsored Lightning Round. I'm just giving this away. But it's Lightning Round. We're going to do something special here to end. We're going to go around. We're going to say what our 2 favorite features of WWDC were.
And these are like features we will use. Like
features we will use.
Right? Okay.
And frustratingly, we picked them before the show.
Yeah.
Where we all took stands against one another's opinions.
Couldn't change it. Not allowed.
We're not allowed to change it as we came back in from break. Cranz, let's begin with you. I'm very worried about your choices.
Yeah, mine, you and HR are probably going to be very worried because Jinmoji and Image Playground are at the top of my list.
Oh, Lord.
I have no artistic ability, and the ability to make a horse with 12 butts just sounds weird. I want to see what happens.
It's a really interesting, no artistic ability and terrible person. It's like a really fascinating combination.
Yeah,
but also wildly creative.
Yeah.
Like if you were like, I have no artistic ability, I'm a bad person, but I couldn't imagine a horse with 12 butts. Like, fine. Go about your day. Right. Cranz is like, I got ideas.
Yeah. I want to see. I want to see what happens. So I'm super excited about that. We'll see how long I'm allowed to be excited about it before Apple just shuts me off.
They shut you down at the server level. They're like, we got the kill switch in iOS. Fire.
As soon as I log in, they're like, nope, that's not for you.
Execute.
But it's going to be sick. And then my other one I've talked about already is the ugly dark mode apps.
Cranz. Oh my God.
You've seen my Slack now. You know, I want everything. I want all of my devices when I turn them on for you to go. Like
again, why don't you use Windows and Android, which from the base levels of the operating system are designed to be this ugly?
It's too easy.
Oh, I see.
You're not a hacker if you're not hacking.
By using the system level theming controls being added to the operating system.
It feels like hacking when it's on iOS.
All right. Cranz, everybody. David, what are you?
My 2, I changed it because I want to talk about 2 things.
You changed yours?
Yeah, but who can remember what my last one was now? It's been too long.
There were rules.
I changed it mid-show, not during the break, so it was fine. I changed it while you were talking about something or other.
Game mode.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, you were like, oh, Assassin's Creed, and I just started typing.
They shot Control in 2017.
My first one. My first one is weirdly just like a throw in at the end of WWDC, which I actually thought was very exciting. It's transcription and AI summarization in the voice memos app.
And also the phone app.
And also the phone app.
Yeah.
So exciting, which is like, this is the kind of thing that like if you're a reporter is life-changing, and if you're a real person is just like sort of whatever. But for me, like I spend a lot of time talking into things and being talked at on those same things, and having a decent recorder is amazing. Like you use the Pixel recorder, Allison, I know, because
have
that
a
is like a
Pixel.
magical little piece of software.
at all times.
And this feels like it might do the same thing. And I'm very excited about that fact.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Also, maybe the thing that AI is the most consistently good at is transcription and summarization. So like sold, love it. I'll take it. The other one is all of the organization stuff in Mail, which I am more excited about as time goes on, because Nilay's making a face at me, which is fair.
He's just thinking mime string is.
I'm like, this man who has to run installer and he has to pretend all software is interesting.
So, no, it's that all email apps for iPhone are bad.
Yeah.
Which is just a fact of the world. Solved problem on the Mac. MimeStream is excellent. Everybody should use MimeStream. Love it to death. There are no good email apps for the iPhone. And before you hear this or see this and send me one, don't. I've tried it. It sucks. They're all bad. But this thing that Apple did, which is basically just launch Gmail.
Yeah.
they were
They
just
have an
like,
updates tab, like the whole thing.
yeah. They do the categorization. They're doing some AI summarization. You can use the tools to rewrite your emails like we were talking about earlier. I'm going to go back to using Apple Mail again, because it is like useful. The problem with Apple Mail has always been that search sucks, which I assume is still the case. And it doesn't have the split inboxes in Gmail, which I've actually now come to rely on. They're not very good, but they're better than just dumping everything into your one inbox. And at least when I go to promotions, it's like mostly stuff I don't want. And when I go to updates, it's like mostly newsletters and receipts. Again, not perfect, but pretty good. And if Apple can do that stuff even that well, it immediately becomes the best email app on the iPhone, like by a mile. And so I'm cautiously optimistic. The Gmail app is so bad.
I want to believe for you.
It's
It's not good.
Yeah. That's why you got to use Outlook.
No.
The
Can I
Gmail
tell you
app,
what sucks about Outlook? This is, well, A, everything. B, it's very slow. But C, when you open an email, the archive button, which is the only button that matters on an email app, is all the way at the top right of the screen, where it is completely unreachable no matter how you hold your phone. Ridiculous.
You archive them?
Do you just leave them? Oh, crap.
Oh, no.
I'm discovering I hate you in this episode.
Oh no!
Don't worry about my little number.
You have
don't
like
worry about it.
12,000, don't you?
It's fine.
You
It's
read
fine.
it, then mark it as unread for the chaos, and then go about your business. Don't
Yeah,
you?
like sometimes I'll be like, oh, that's spam. I'll leave it unread so I'll get to it one day.
one.
Oh, that hurts my
Yes,
soul.
that's the way to do it. Second, the Gmail app has actually solved this by way of a bug that is still not fixed, which is sometimes when you open an email from the notification on the Gmail app for iOS, it just deletes the email.
I've noticed
And
this.
it's just like, how do you get here? How did you arrive at this state, Google?
I mean,
All that AI, and then like, I bet what you wanted to do was immediately delete this email that you actually chose to take an action on. Then action was delete. And that's how I hit inbox 0.
Congratulations. That's really exciting. Yeah, reading it is not important to getting to inbox
I no
0.
longer. I'm
The
just gonna
steps
let the
in
robot
between.
summarize the email.
Yeah.
I can't believe you picked fucking mail app.
I honestly, the more I think about it, the more excited I am about it. But also the thing where you can now group by sender. So I'm like, the one time you go to a restaurant and then they send you an email every day for the rest of your life, going and clicking the unsubscribe button, too much work. Doing it in Gmail doesn't work. That's just a lie that they tell you. But now you can group them and just delete them all at once.
Yeah.
And I like that.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the same AI idea everyone else has, which is like, you're planning a trip. And all the emails from your trip are going to be a little digest of trip emails.
Love it.
Great. I'm super excited for you and Mail app.
Thank you. It's going to be an awesome 6 days.
Yeah.
And then somebody will update their app again. And I'll be like, maybe they fixed it and they didn't.
Yeah.
But I will try it again.
You've got a problem, and it's fine because it keeps you writing.
I do it for work now.
Allison, what do you need some saying?
Yeah.
All right, what are yours, Allison?
Mine are messaging related.
Ooh.
I am, because I test a lot of Android phones, I am usually the person on Android in the group chat.
Do you turn iMessage on when you test an iPhone and then off when you stop?
Yeah.
Does it ruin your life every time you do that?
Kind of like possibly I have missed out on friendships, things happening. I don't know.
When you de-enroll from iMessage, you miss messages like for days.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I think there's people I just don't talk to anymore because they probably tried to message me. No, I do this. I do it with RCS. So RCS and iMessage is gonna fix everything for me. I feel really good about.
That's even more optimistic than David picking Mail app.
I love this.
Well, you can send high resolution photos now.
It's the photos because, right now, when in the group chat, we're sharing photos of our kids doing cute things, and I have to be like, "I'm sorry, I'm screwing up the high, the quality of the images here. Can you just send them to my husband, or can we put them in a Google?" There's so many Google Photos albums. It's like,
oh God.
How are you on any group chats in text?
I love the idea of everybody sending photos back and forth, and then you just sending Google Photos links.
Oh my God, yeah. Check out my cool photos. And
you have really good friends.
I know they are so patient with
Those
me.
are some rock
But you know
solid
what? There was one Android guy, and he just switched to iPhone too. I was like,
tough.
now it's just me. Yeah. So that's it. RCS is gonna fix everything for me. I feel good about it.
That is a good one.
Yeah. And scheduling messages.
Yes, that's a
Which
clutch
is
one.
iMessage only.
I'm going to schedule so many messages for like 7 minutes from now. Just so it's not like immediately thirsty, but like within 10 is too much. Right?
Yeah.
Wait,
Send
that's
7 minutes
so
from now.
true.
It fixes the you just texted me and I'm going to text you right back, but that seems weird. And then I'm going to forget about it and then never text you
Yep,
back.
those are the only two options that exist.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Honestly, I'm
that.
so glad you both just said that because this is my main problem as a person. Is I will read your message, and if I respond, if I am in the right headspace to respond to it, I'm very responsive. I'm ready. But if I do the thing where I put my phone down, we're done. I'm
Gone.
never ever getting back to it, and I will just feel an increasing sense of guilt. Like I could name you right now off the top of my head 15 people I owe text messages to who are never getting text messages from me.
Do you read them?
Name them now.
Oh, I've-
This will be the greatest TikTok in Vergecast history. Name the 15 people you know that you are supposed to text.
Under no circumstances, but all of them know who they are, which is the beauty of it. And I'm just, it's
7 minutes right. They should just add it as a default button. Send in 7 minutes.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling
Send,
you.
but be cool.
Be cool about it.
Chill. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
a really good one.
This is like the
that.
swingers button. All right. I can't believe I picked these two.
Hey, Nilay, what are yours? What are your picks?
I picked one that I stand by. Which is phone mirroring
Yep.
Yes.
and remote iOS access for grandparent tech support.
That's huge.
Game changers. Game changers all the way around. And that's it. Those
Yeah,
are two. That's two. I
no,
picked
you
two.
had one more. What was it?
At the time, I did not know what we were picking. I thought we were just picking some cool features. I did not know that I would create false conflict with David in the iPad segment, and I picked the calculator.
Okay, Nilay, I would like you to do the following. I would like you to right now make the case that the calculator app is the missing thing on the iPad, and the iPad is now perfect and complete. I would like you to make that case right now.
The problem with the iPad for the past 13 years has been its inability to do simple mathematics. I think, as we've all known. And now you can.
That was it. I do want to say quickly, just to pour one out for the app called Solver, which is an awesome, very cool, very clever app where you can just like type out the math you're trying to do. You're just like, the bill is $65. There's 4 of us. How much does everybody owe with a 20% tip? And it just answers your math questions like that. Apple just full Sherlocked that app today.
No, because you would have to get out your iPad and start writing with a pencil at dinner. And I don't think that's what's happening here.
They're like, oh, do you want to sign the check? And you're like, not yet. Hold on.
I've got to draw dinner. How much of the apps did you have? I agree that they took a lot of those ideas. But yeah, I think Solver's fun because it's an iPhone app, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good on the iPhone.
It's unbelievable they're not adding any of these calculator features to the iPhone. It's like the iPhone and the iPad will never have the same calculator experience.
The epiphany that I had during the live blog today was that everybody desperately wants the iPad to become a Mac, and what it actually is an iPhone with a stylus.
Yes.
And to the extent that that changes what you can do on it, Apple is like pushing really hard on that idea that like because there's a stylus, you can do new things. That's the whole bent of the iPad right now.
When we get the folding phone,
exactly.
it's going to be sick.
When it folds.
Yeah, it may
all
well be,
over.
but it
With
is
your
like it
giant
is
Apple
further and
pencil.
further away from being a Mac all the time.
And then you can use your folding iPad on your computer because it will do iPhone mirroring.
And then you plug in your Vision Pro
See?
and you get a giant ass
Yeah.
monitor.
Bringing it all together.
We fixed it.
I think I've never been more depressed about computers than after that entire sequence. What? I actually think we saw a lot from Apple today, which indicates this company can actually have new ideas, which is sort of not been the case for a minute, right? Like they're like, we added theming to iOS for Cranz. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stuff that other platforms had forever. Even though all these AI features are kind of the same, like as everybody else, they've integrated them into the operating system in better ways. They have a better story to tell. Like, here's why it's useful, as opposed to like, here's just the raw amount of compute that we can throw at a problem, which is basically how Google handles things. But I come back to this thing about the iPad, and it's like they still don't know why they make this thing. They just don't know.
Yeah. It gets increasingly cool without ever getting more itself.
Yeah, I think they make it because they sell them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, and it's like they need to kickstart that somehow.
Or do they? Because they sell them.
That's true. I think my bold prediction here is the iPhone thing is heading towards a touchscreen on a Mac. Because if you put the iPhone's display on a Mac, there's but one thing people are going to ask to start doing with it and start touching it.
Swipe.
Yeah.
I just want to swipe
full
TikTok in a tiny window on my Mac.
I just want to
That's all
respond to a
it
Google notification directly on a mirrored iPhone window and immediately delete that message for no reason.
It's the future.
All right. Is that it? Is that our show?
That's it.
Since 6 hours long. We have more. We're going to go through all the betas that we're seeing.
Yep.
We'll run through additional features on Friday. What did I say? It says Monday.
Today's Monday.
Whew.
For Friday's show, we're going to do sort of a cleanup because, like I said, there's been a ton of new stuff that we've seen if people have been installing the betas. We have a lot more white paper reading to do. So we're going to do a like everything we didn't talk about thing on Friday's show. So if there is stuff we didn't talk about,
If you work
that
at
want
another
us to talk
company,
about-
don't make any news.
Yeah. Oh my God, please. Honestly, I'm begging.
Turn it off.
We have to talk
Shut
about
it
the
down.
stupid Xbox and we have to talk about this. So the show is done. No more news this week.
All right. That's it. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Allison, for joining us. We'll be back on Friday with more of this, which you love, on all the platforms you love the most. Well, that's it. That's Vergecast Rock and Roll.
And that's it for the Vergecast this week. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 866-VERGE11. The Vergecast is a production of the Verge and Vox Media Podcast Network. Our show is produced by Andrew Marino and Liam James. That's it. We'll see you next week.